What's up, guys? Glad you could make it. I'm Simon. This is Forever Young RC. What we're going to do today is a product out by Injora. It's the low center of gravity chassis, and we're going to take the Ascent 18 and swap the chassis out and put it on this. I can already see a couple of problems, but generally Injora makes a really good product. One of the first things I notice, not really a problem, but it's good for the stock truck. If you look at this LCG chassis and you look at the stock Ascent chassis, the stock Ascent chassis already comes pretty low LCG for a, RTR and a stock chassis. So that's great for this. I don't know, or I don't think it's going to give us a whole lot of gain with this, but what I do see is a more of a selection to put, placement for your shocks. You can lay them forward or lay them back a little bit more to get it even lower, and that's what I like to do, is get these as low as possible. We'll see if we have a problem with the layout, but it looks about the same. Another thing that Injora does really well is they usually give really good instructions, or pretty good instructions. The instructions are pretty self-explanatory, nice and easy, and they label out all the screws, the M2x4, M2x5, and they give you, and it just makes things a lot easier. And I got these with the sliders. We're gonna, exchange this off to this chassis and see how it goes. One other thing I don't like, I can already tell, I don't like two-piece chassis. This is actually a three-piece. You got 1, 2, 3, whereas it just leaves room for too much play. I had a little bit of a time getting these lined up and these to be squared off and perpendicular to each other, because with these 8 bolts here, it just leaves too much play in each side, and you have to get it perfect. And when you're tightening the stuff down, it wants to move and shift direction. So I think I got it pretty good now. We'll see. Like I said, I don't know how good of a performance upgrade this will be, but we're going to try it out. And one thing I did see on Cape Crawler's YouTube channel is he did one of these, which is a great channel. Go check him out. He weighed these, and you would think the carbon fiber chassis would weigh less, but I think maybe with the bolts and screws holding it in, it wound up weighing a couple of grams more. We're going to see. We're going to check that out. Matter of fact, let's check that out right now. We'll do it with the body off, and we're also going to do it with the wheels and tires off. See if I come up with the same weight gain that Cape Crawlers did. We're on there. Okay, we got 368 grams. We will switch these out. Now, let's compare these two chassis a little bit. The shock towers are almost the same height, but as you can see, the LCG chassis is this way a little bit more. Therefore, it gives you a little better adjustment for your shock. Not so much on the front. A little disappointed with that. It is gonna set some electronics down in here a little lower. Here's where they line up. It's essentially about the same depth. So, like I said, I don't think it's going to be too much of a performance upgrade, because the stock chassis is a really nice chassis. It's pretty LCG on its own. Give you kind of a side comparison. We'll get in there. We will, dang it. we will get it in there. We'll see. Let's check and see the difference in the weight on both of these. All right, let's see what these two weigh. The stock, 28 grams. LCG, 24 grams. Okay, this is what we got going on. I did the chassis swap. It's the old chassis. It's the new one. Like I said, I still like the stock chassis because it is a pretty LCG chassis. I don't think you're gonna make a lot of gains with this one. Just as I thought, what I did see was a better placement for the shock positions here. How I laid it out was how I laid out the stock chassis. This Injora chassis, it gives you these plates to put in here. And you can do it like a double decker. You can set this one up here and put everything here if you want. I didn't really want to do that. I wanted to keep as much weight down low as possible. This is pretty low. I wanted to put my battery here, so I wanted to offset the weight bias a little bit. So I stuck with putting my receiver and the power button right over here, and I'll have my battery right over here, just like that, nice and neat. And it gets rid of this, which is another little bit of added weight that's gone. And I replaced the steering servo while I was at it with just one of the Emax servos, which I don't really like that much. I want to get a different servo. But what I can see as a little problem is when the servo is at full throw, it's going to might be hitting this. So I might have to take off this front bumper. That's not a big deal. I do have my shocks in a full negative droop setup, which means the things are almost pulled all the way up in. But see that clearance up under here? The clearance, man, the axles are sucked way up in there. The lowest thing is going to be the skid plate. So, and also another thing I did, I pulled off one of these plates from here, from the front here. I put it here so I could put Injora speed control right up here, and it works real well. Again, just to keep the weight forward. And it really does seem to have a pretty good forward weight bias. I'll put my finger here and it's still tipping forward. Even at the front of the skid, it's still wanting to go forward. So it's probably at about a 55, 45 weight bias. Let's see what this one weighs. Battery off of it. 378 grams is what this weighs without the battery. So we can compare this with the other one. Let's get some wheels and tires on this, throw in a battery, and go test it out on the course. All right, here we are at Cul-de-sac Canyon. Let's go have some fun when we give this Injora LCG chassis a good shakedown. My final thoughts on this overall Injora chassis build is overall positive. Like I said before, I don't think there's a tremendous amount of gains as far as climbing ability, but you do get some different places to put your electronics and so forth if you like. And the biggest draw is this does have the places to optimize your shot point adjustments. Now, when I built this little mountain, I built it out of concrete. So there was really no way for me to test it as I was building it to make sure I didn't make it too hard or too easy. So by far, as you can see, this right side of the little mountain is the hardest. Right now, I do not have a vehicle that has gone up and completed the right side of this hill. So here in the future, I am going to try to do a build that will actually get up this part of the little mountain, but it's always exciting to, you know, try this and to see what vehicles can get the farthest up it. I'm thinking about removing this ramp that I test angles with because I want to extend the mountain on out a little further because I'm limited on space. You guys let me know in the comments if you think I should get rid of this or keep it. Now, coming across this rock garden, I have my suspension set up in full negative droop. I do that using internal springs. So I do sacrifice a little bit of ground clearance for center of gravity, low center of gravity, but it works out really well for me. And if you want to figure out how I do this, I'm going to link another video about how to make any RC car shocks set up for full negative droop without having to use any rubber bands or anything like that. It's an internal spring. Works great.